Hi, my name's Nancy Barile, and I teach English language arts at Revere High School in Revere, Massachusetts. When I was in high school, I felt like my voice wasn't heard. And I didn't think that my teachers were very involved in creating a learning experience that was meaningful. And I started to, become very disenfranchised and disempowered from the whole thing. And one thing that I really did like was music. And so I began, pouring my heart into, going to see bands and listening to records and lyrics, and that's what really spoke to me at that time. Music kind of never let me down, and artists like Patti Smith, she would talk about different poets or authors, and then I'd go and read them. And so I found the whole punk rock scene very interesting and different from my suburban Catholic school upbringing. So after I finished 2 years of college, I moved to Center City, Philadelphia. And, I started hanging around with a little contingent. It was 1979. That was a good time for punk rock, a little contingent of punk rock people. And we wanted to, see bands that we liked, and I was managing a band at the time. And so we just, started doing things ourselves, making our own records, making fanzines, and we decided to do all ages shows because if we weren't of age to get into nightclubs, and, our bands weren't playing, the Spectrum or the big venues. So we would rent an Elk Center and Knights of Columbus halls and little venues, and we would call bands from all over the world to do shows. So I met some incredible, I even met my husband that way, I met some incredible people from that. And it was really empowering to me as a woman who grew up in a very patriarchal home, in a patriarchal school, in a patriarchal city, to, have this, it really empowered me to, kind of be a badass, like that, hey, we can do all this stuff and we'll just do it ourselves if, no one's doing it. So after I, moved to Boston, and, it took me a while, but I finally became a teacher at the age of 36. And I realized that I was using all these things that I learned in punk rock. People would say, like, I won a couple of teacher awards, and they would say, well, what made you a good teacher? And after I thought about it, it wasn't really, professional development or anything like that. It was punk rock. That's what empowered me. That's what helps me connect to my disenfranchised and disempowered kids. Because that's how I felt when I was in high school. So I remember those lessons of sitting in the back of the room and thinking, oh, this is so boring. I can't connect to this. Like, how would I teach this lesson, And then, I teach in a low-income school. My students don't have a lot of resources. So the whole do-it-yourself work ethic became really, really important to me. And that's when I started, trying to raise money to get books and bringing in guest speakers and taking my students on all these fabulous field trips and, doing some things that, gave them some extra, learning that was outside the classroom walls. And it was, and it was really fun. I remember one time I just wrote a letter to a woman who lives in Maryland who ran an international opera company. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I could take my kids to the opera? And I just sent her an email, and she was like, sure, your kids can come. And not only did she give me tickets for like 80 kids to come to the opera all the time when that troupe was in Boston, but she let my kids be extras in the opera, so and she let them design the playbill. And, she was just, her name is Jenny Kelly. She was amazing. And that's, all that came from punk rock. I had Michael Patrick McDonald, who wrote All Souls, come in and talk to my students about the writing process. And then, as I would start creating lessons, I was like, I really want my students to be able to know what's going on in the world, and to be able to make informed decisions without like you know, looking at all the societal pressures that are on them. And so that's like when I started creating my lessons, I wanted to make sure that they would really help my kids be independent thinkers and independent learners who checked and evaluated sources. And, you know, all that came from punk rock. So, you know, when it comes right down to, you know, what makes, everybody has something that they bring with them to make them, you know, to help them improve their teaching. And for me, it was punk rock.